So this is the walk we were working on yesterday. For anyone who didn't see, we were animating a walk in a layered fashion. A layered fashion is essentially animating one part of the walk at a time. So in this case, we animated the hips first, and then from there we animated the legs, then added the body. And this is where we're at right now. So this is the walk we have at the moment. Let's actually go full screen just here so we can see it at speed. Here's the walk. And this was all animated, just layered, and in all took us about an hour and a half, I believe it was, or 2 hours, for basically the full body. And for the most part, the body is pretty much polished up. There's still some things that we need to kind of refine a little bit, but overall, it's pretty much there. So layered animation moves very, very quickly, and we can work very, very quickly with it. Now today, the big goal is going to be cleaning up a few different things, adding in the arms, adding in the head, and potentially even adding in some hair animation. We'll see how much time we have. Now I'm going to continue to animate in the layered fashion. And the goal here is going to be trying to animate quickly and using elements that we already have to help speed up our workflow. So that's going to be the goal here. Now, the first thing that I want to fix here is just a few things that I noticed when I open up the animation again today, which is we're dealing with some knee pops. We can clean those up pretty quick here. And then the other thing is that I feel like the body is kind of hunched over. It kind of feels like the character is doing this as they're walking. I want to push that chest to be up a little bit higher here. So let's just do that super quick. I just need to take the IK chest control. And Sao, to answer your question, for the hip rotation, which controller do you often use? It depends on the style of walk. Typically, I will use the FK hip control for the hip rotations. If I'm doing a walk where the character's really like doing these big motions, I might use a little bit of the cog. For this walk, I'm using the IK spine. So honestly, I change it depending on the style of walk and what I'm doing. For the average walk, I will tend to use FK spine and the FK hip. And then the cog is more for the side-to-side motion, typically. So that's the typical motion that I do. Okay. So with that, I want to take the IK chest here, and I want to lean it back a little bit. So the character is just standing a little bit more upright. So I can just take my rotate X right here. I'm just going to take the entire curve and move it down. Like that. So now we're getting a little bit of that upwards curve of the chest. Essentially, the thing with the chest is that it naturally has a lean back to it. If you look at the rib cage, kind of has a lean here. That's their sternum. And then it comes in and it's kind of this shape. You've got your neck and your head here. Now that's a little bit too steep right there and too short. But we start to get that shape a little bit with the rib cage. So I want to have that feeling in there. If I'm starting to feel that rib cage sinking in, it starts to feel like the character's hunched too much. So that helps a lot already. The next thing I want to do is I want to tweak the knees so I don't get knee pops. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to do to solve this. One is on the passing poses. I feel like I could keep the knees a little bit more bent right here. So I'm going to lower this just a little bit. Just so we have a little bit more variation there. I'm also going to keep the hips a little lower right here. So it takes a little bit more time to get up into pose. That this will add more weight to the character and avoid the knee kind of snapping back up right through here. And then on the up pose, I'm just going to tone these down a little bit right here. I don't want that knee to stretch. So I'm going to just tweak that a little bit right here. I might have to push the foot roll a little bit. Okay, goes up, and now see here how it pops down. I'll just need to tweak that. Okay, so it's snapping a little bit here, right there, and then it pops forward just a little bit as it comes down. And then let's tweak the other side here. Just make those curves somewhat similar. Yeah, so the knee pops right there. Okay, I'll just need to adjust the foot there. Okay, so as the character stands up, let's look at it from the side. We've kind of fixed that knee wiggle that was happening right around here. I still feel like this is a little too much of a pop right there. So to solve this, all I need to do is take my foot roll attribute and have this go up a little faster. Just there. I want to keep a small micro bend in that foot and then let it stretch. And even here, I can push the, oops, not that high. Push this up a little bit more. There we go. Get that nice smooth transition there. Let's look at the other leg. So, comes down, passing, snaps to straight there. So let's take our foot roll. Make sure I'm actually on the area that has keys. So bend this up so we keep a little bit of a bend here. Then it straightens out. There we go. Okay. So that gets rid of that first knee pop that's happening on the passing up pose. The next knee pop that's happening is happening right around the contact. And we can see it here. If I zoom in, it's the leg goes through, straightens, and then bends right away. And if I track the arc here, I'm going to track this point right there, and that is a little too thick right there. Okay. So if we track this point, it's going back, stops, comes back, goes forward right away, and then back again. So this is where we're getting that knee pop. It holds right here, snaps back, and then pops forward in one frame. We need to round this out. Now, when you're doing this here and you're trying to track this, what I like to do is use the grease pencil tool. This is why I like the grease pencil tool. Is with the grease pencil tool, I can track this much more easily, and it looks like my drawings got offset for some reason. Interesting. Let me redraw them here. Okay. So let's track that knee. Right there, and then back, right there. Okay, so what I like about using the grease pencil tool over something like a motion trail tool is I can essentially use this as a guide of where do I need to adjust that knee? What do I need to fix to make this work? If I look at the spacing right now, we're kind of easing in right here, and then popping forward and then changing direction right away. This knee pose here should be easing into the extreme. So instead, I would want to take this and maybe put it over here. So now it's going faster and then easing in. And even maybe this position here, maybe just a little bit closer this way. Pushing that arc right through. It changes direction here. This is not bad. I might be able to take this and ease that change of direction just a little bit more. This is a song I love. And then right here, we want to fix this spacing so that it doesn't pause in the middle. So I will just look at this and think, okay, what do I want my spacing to be like? I would want it to ease out here and then ease in over here. Move fast in the middle. And then right here, we've got a direction change. Well, ideally that direction change should be a little softer. So I would have to move either this pose back or move this pose forward a little bit. Now, this is the contact pose right here. We want that to be straight, but it doesn't have to be like super, super straight. So I'm actually going to see if I can move this forward ever so slightly. Somewhere around there. And then on this knee, if I can, it's going to be tricky. I'm going to see if I can get it to be over here. Whenever you have a change of direction, if you don't want it to pop, you want the frame before the extreme. The frame before the extreme to be a little bit further away than the frame after. This is going to create a more natural motion. If that frame after is further away, it'll create more of a pop, more of a hit. So ideally, I would like that to happen here. Then it goes forward, and then we get that nice change of direction again back the other way. Okay, so that's the spacing I would like to have happen on my foot, on my leg here. Well, at this point, I just make it happen. This is what I like about this kind of method, is instead of having to try and... Oh, interesting. Something is going on with my control. See, I can't select something here. Let me save just to make sure we don't lose it. And okay. My select tool. Oh, I know. There you go. The B hotkey was locked for some reason. You can see how if I middle clicked, it got that ring. That's the brush size. For some reason, it was locked on that shortcut. There we go. So I'm just going to place that knee where I want it. I've already tracked my arc, basically gotten it where I want it to be. And actually, did I just... I nudged my camera again. Don't move your camera. If you're tracking your arcs with a grease pencil, you can use the 2D pan and zoom. Don't actually move your camera. Otherwise, you'll see it offsets the keys if you're not careful. So if I zoom in and out like that, see that? Don't do that. So, okay. So we've got that knee coming in. It needs to be a little bit more forward right here. So let's maybe bring that forward right through there. Voila. Now, actually, something else that I did want to do is I feel like the foot's going up too high in general. So I'm going to also bring it down a little bit here. This is going to affect our arc, but it shouldn't be too bad. Okay. So we're still getting that little pop there. On this pose, this foot needs to be much more forward here. So more like that. forward, ease in. There we go. Pretty much where I drew it there. Now, as it comes down here, let's see if we can bring that foot back a little bit there. And then maybe just a little touch higher up. That should get our knee pretty close to where we want it to be. So now we tweak that. That pose is pretty much in place. This one needs to be much further down. So I'm going to take my translate Y, bring it down here. Something like that. Essentially, I'm just thinking of, do I need to bend the leg or stretch the leg? That's going to move the knee forward and back. So we do that. At this point, I want a little bit of a bend in that knee. So I'm actually going to take the hips and translate them down ever so slightly. Now this is going to affect my poses before, so I'll have to double check that. Should be fine. Okay. And then right here, ideally I'd want to bring that hip up a little bit, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Because we're on the frame after the contact, the foot should be flat. I could technically keep the foot a little higher if I wanted to, bring that up, but you'll see how that brings the knee forward. I don't want that. I want to bring the knee back. So the only way I could do that is really raising the hips up, or maybe playing around with my rotate Y a little bit, but we're not going to get huge results from that. Maybe the rotate Z. Let's see, how much can I push the rotate Z here? So the rotate Z is going to be the angle of the hips that way. I can maybe have that go up a little faster here. Let's see, I'm just playing around with that a little bit, see if I can tweak the arc. Just a little bit. Yeah, that's a little better. Right through there. Let's fix the connection here. Round that out. Okay. There we go. So that should be that knee right there. Goes forward, eases in. I'm feeling a little bit of a bounce right here. So I feel like I could, let's see, let me make sure I'm on the frames with the drawings. Right here, I feel like I could raise that knee a little higher. So I'm going to take my translate Y and just adjust that a little higher here. That's better. There we go. Now, one thing I'm noticing is right here on the takeoff, there's a little bit of a sticky knee. Sticky knees are when the knee just kind of stops and then pops up like that. See how it's almost like it just kind of freezes right there? If that knee is going forward here, I want to keep it going forward. It shouldn't go back for one frame and then pop forward again. So for this, I'm just going to push the foot roll even more right there. So it keeps going forward, and there we go. And then maybe here, we'll push that foot roll even more forward. There. There we go. Nice. Okay, so with that, we've tracked that leg. Now we do the other leg. Now, since I'm doing layered animation, I have a few choices on how I do this. I could just track the other leg. Done. Just do that. Or I could copy the animation from the other leg back on. Since the way I'm doing a cycle, that's just going to be more work because I'm going to have to copy it over, but then I'm going to have to tweak things anyway because both sides of the walk aren't perfectly symmetrical. So I would rather just track the arc. Now, what if we did want to make a perfectly symmetrical walk? How would we do that? I'm not going to do it here because it's going to tweak. Well, we could if we wanted to. If I wanted to make a perfectly symmetrical walk, instead of animating a full cycle like I did here, you would only animate half a cycle. So let's take, for example, our rotate Y. Instead of animating this like so, I would only animate half this curve. And then in the graph editor, instead of cycling the curve with a cycle with offset, I would oscillate it like this. And now it goes back and forth. So you could do something like that. So you can see we get all sorts of different kinds. So I could do something like that. I personally prefer doing a full cycle because it creates some natural inconsistencies. So not every step feels perfectly mirrored. Let's see. When in my contact position, the front leg has a bend to it. Yeah. Do I need that locked knee before the contact? No. You would keep the leg bent the whole way. In your walk, which is that supermodel walk, they're contacting the front much more softly and pushing off with that back leg. So you would just kind of ease. The contact would be the straightest position of the knee. It just wouldn't be a straight. It would still be a slight bend. So you would just ease into that position with that knee. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so let's look at our arcs here. Once again, we're just looking for that spacing. So right here, we're getting this big snap right there. The contact here, let's do the hips first. This needs to be a little lower. So we get just the slightest bend there. Already that makes a huge difference. Then I think this part here is working pretty well. Yeah. So let's get rid of that sticky knee that we were getting right here first. Now you can track the arc. You can do it by eye if you want as well. You could use an editable motion trail or something like that too. But once again, I prefer to do this visually with the grease pencil because then I can either redraw or just essentially see where the position used to be. So here, as I use my foot roll, I can compare where my pose was before, where it is after. So really push that forward there, push that forward here. There we go. And you can really see how that smooths out that motion there. Now, as it goes through, let's track the arc over here. And it is a little tedious, I will say that, tracking your arcs like this, but it is part of animation, is just making sure that our spacing is working the way we want it to. So right here, it just locks off and then snaps. That's definitely not good. So whatever way you do this, it's up to you, but we have to do it. We have to pay attention to the little details. So it comes in. I feel like the foot here could be a little lower, like on the other side. I feel like the feet are just kind of kicking up too high overall. And then I'll have to push my Translate Z a little bit more forward here. Okay. Ideally, ease in just a little bit more here. Just a little bit. Then right there, it pops forward. Or I should say pops back. So I'm going to ease that. And then right there, we get that stop. We don't want that. So to get that to work a little bit better, the knee has to be brought forward here, which means bringing the foot up slightly, adding more bend, and then straightening it out here. There we go. And then we get that forward and bend. Okay. So let's see how that feels. Let's go full screen here. Yeah, pretty good. There's still a little bit of a knee wiggle. Just a little tiny bit. Right in here. But it's not bad. Part of that knee wiggle is because we're doing a cycle in place. So let's actually see how it feels walking in space here. Not bad. Let's look at it in 3D space. Yeah, there's a slight little start-stop to it, but not bad. If I wanted to, I would keep polishing that up a little bit more, but for the demo purposes, it's just more of the same. Just really going in there and fixing the arcs. So I'm not going to worry too much about it right now. There's other things I want to show versus more foot polish. But you can see we got a pretty good level in there already. It's not perfect, but it's close. See, how long would a walk cycle take for you to finish if you were to do it as fast as you can with polish? Something like this, let's say this walk cycle, I would probably finish in about 2 hours, maybe less. So yeah, for example, I showed this on stream before, but that run cycle that I had done, a run cycle test, which was right here. So this was just testing out a rig. It's not quite polished, but something like this took me about an hour and a half. Something like that. It's not fully polished yet, but like I think maybe another half hour of polish would probably be all I would need on something like that to get a little bit of facial animation in there, like just more fleshiness, all of that stuff. So yeah, about 2 hours for something like this ish. It depends. Every rig is different. Sometimes some rigs are much faster to work with. There's less knee pops just based on their proportions and stuff. Other rigs, you just have to be so much more meticulous on all the ways they move. So it can take a little longer, but a few hours for a full cycle. It also depends on the length of the cycle. So we're doing a 24 frame cycle, which isn't really that much. It's not too bad. Okay. So we've got this here. Let's turn off our forward motion there. So let's say the legs are done. How would would I expect an associate to do it? It depends on what level they're at. So if they've got years of experience, I would expect probably a few hours, maybe not 2 hours, but like 4 or 5 hours For someone like kind of new to a studio, maybe a day or two, so a full 8-hour day. It really depends on what kind of cycle it is, again, all of that, but like a day for a really well polished cycle. Yeah. For someone who's like learning and they haven't done that many cycles, like especially like, as a student, it takes a few days at least, even like a week sometimes. Let's see, is there a reason why Stella and Stuart have turbo big heads? Yes, actually. If you notice, there's a lot of rigs that have just massive heads, just huge heads. And there's two reasons for that. One is, stylistically, it tends to make characters look cuter. You see this with Disney cartoons, all these cartoons. Characters have much bigger heads than normal. So it's a stylistic choice. But second, it's also an educational thing, where as animators, we will have to deal with characters that have proportions that are not common to human proportions. Wreck-It Ralph is this huge, big, square character. Sonic has one eye. Yet it's kind of two eyes. He's got this huge head. His hands and feet are gigantic. The proportions are all over the place. And as animators, we have to take what we shoot in real life reference, and then translate it over to these characters. And we have to learn how to adapt to things. So for example, I can do this, and you can see there's a lot of space between my elbows and my head. Most rigs, when you try to do that, their arms are going to be like this, just so that they can try to reach the top of their head. They have to like stretch. It's not going to work out for them. We have to figure out, how can we adapt that? If I lean forward, my head, it doesn't affect me too much. If you're doubling the size of the head, suddenly you've got this character and they're going to just tip over because the size of their head is huge. So it's an easy way to get students to start thinking of how you need to change things without doing like a huge, like cartoony proportions on the whole body as well. Even though the body is pushed quite a bit, necks tend to be longer, things like that. So it's stylistic, but it's also there to kind of start that thought process as you go through. So hopefully that answers your question there. And if you have any other questions like that for anyone, definitely feel free to ask. Now, as we go through here, let's see. So we've got the body in place. Let's do the arms. Now, I'm just like before, I'm going to do one arm at a time. So let's turn on the left arm. And how will we approach animating this? Well, the first thing that I want to do is I want to get the swing of the arm in place. The swing of the arm is going to determine a lot. It's going to determine how the clavicle moves, all of that good stuff. So I want to get that in there first. But I don't want to get too caught up on a lot of details. And I also don't want to get caught up on dealing with a lot of counter animation or gimbal lock. So what I mean by that is you'll notice that the way I animate a lot of this is I take one attribute, I animate that, get that feeling right, I add another attribute. Now if I just take this arm control, let's say I'm animating this FK, I move this down and then start animating this forward and back. Okay, that works great. But then if I start to add the twist, which I'll need to do here, suddenly, okay, working great, working great. I bring that arm in and actually, there you go. Let me reset that. I was in the wrong rotation mode there. Doesn't help my demo when I'm a step ahead. So I move this arm down here and now I swing it forward and back and add a little rotation. Look at all my values. See how they're all rotating and adjusting together? This is not necessarily a bad thing for most posing, but as I'm trying to do this swing, this is going to be kind of a pain because now as I'm trying to go in and out and around, I'm dealing with a lot of curves. If we look at the graph editor here, essentially as I do this, you'll see all three curves are adjusting together. I bring it out, all three curves are adjusting. That's a pain to clean up because I'll clean up the one curve, but then I'm going to get a wiggle because another curve wasn't cleaned up, and I'll clean that one up, and then now they don't connect together well. It's a pain. Now, sometimes that's fine, and in most cases I tend to ignore it, but for a walk cycle like this, I want to simplify my life a little bit. I want to make it so I don't have to deal with all of this extra work. So what I'm going to do is use a feature on the rig, which you don't have to do. This is totally optional, but I like to do this to simplify things. If I select the arm control right here, there is a gimbal control. Now, gimbal controls we've talked about on the stream before. They allow us to create offsets on things, but the main purpose of a gimbal control is to avoid that whole rotation, like all three attributes moving at the same time. Essentially what this allows me to do is I can just take this control right here, this gimbal control, use that to rotate the arm down, like so. Now I have this one here that I can just use to rotate the arm forward and back, like this, and it is totally unaffected. It's going to have this perfect rotation. It's doing its own thing. Then the second control here, I can use to have the arm go in and rotate like this. Just do that. Just in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. Done. So I'm splitting up my rotations to simplify how I approach this. Now, you can do this in all sorts of different ways. So this is probably going to be the way I do it, where I take the inner control and rotate that down. But you could take the larger control, rotate that down instead, and then do this. And then use the other control just for another set of motion. It's really up to you. So essentially what we're doing is, instead of using all three attributes, all three X, Y, and Z on one control, we are using two controls, where the shoulder in this case right here, the main control, is just going to be controlling that forward swing. That's it. The other one is just going to be controlling the twist and the in out of the arm. That's it. So essentially making my life just a little bit easier. So yeah, that's going to be the goal with this. So I'm just going to get the arm kind of in position right here. I want it kind of stuck to the body very close. And I'm just going to animate a quick swing using just the main control here. Let me actually get rid of all the extra keys that I started putting in here. Okay, so just the main control. I just want to swing. That's it. So let's start that first position here. The arm is going to go back, but not too far back. I don't want this character to do like a big striding swing, just a little bit. And then, so on this contact pose, the arm's going to be about there. On the next contact pose, it'll be forward about there. And then we'll go back to the beginning here. So already we've got a swing cycle right there. And that's that's pretty much it. There you go. I could go with that. But it's kind of boring. So if I look at my rotate X right now, it's just this very boring curve. So let's push this a little bit. As it goes through, I feel like on the down pose, I could favor the extreme a little bit more here. So it kind of holds a little bit longer. Maybe just a little less than that. Then on the passing pose, I don't want the arm to be passing at the same time as the leg, where you can see I was just perfectly lined up right there. I would either want that arm to hold back further or go further forward here. So I think I'm going to swing it a little faster right there. Now, as I do that, don't let the arm and the leg kind of have the same angle. That's going to feel a little weird. So just a little bit past there. On the up pose, let's get that arm kind of in place there. Ease in. And then as we come back, kind of the same things. I want to ease out of that pose, of that up position. So right around there, it starts to swing through. Let's kind of swing it past really quickly here. We'll see how fast we can go with this before it eases in right there. Okay. Maybe a little less. Okay. So let's see how this feels. And we're just going to look at it from the side view here and make sure I have that control selected. Now, actually, this is just a nice little note. If you ever find yourself like, I'm animating this control, I want this rotate X. That's really the only thing I'm animating. And I deselect and it's like, oh man, I just want to animate that curve. I just want to clean it up without having to keep selecting things. Take your curve here, and then you'll notice that there's these little thumbtack icons on the left side. I can just hit that icon right next to the rotate X. Now, if I deselect something, I still see that curve. And I can do this with anything. So if I want to say maybe the rotate Y of the hips, I can pin that. Now, even with nothing selected, I just have all of those pinned curves there all the time. And this makes it very easy to start polishing things up because I don't have to keep reselecting all of these different things where I just want to compare maybe both feet, the foot roll of both feet, as well as the translate Y of the hips. They're just there the whole time. And then I can still select right there. And if I don't want to see anything anymore, so maybe I don't want to see the rotate Y of the hips there, oop, unpin it. There we go. So just a little something. I don't know how many people actually use that or not, but it can be very, very useful. So I'm just looking at the upper arm, not looking at the motion of the elbow or the hand. And overall, that feels not bad. It feels a little robotic right now because the forward motion and the backwards motion is just kind of, it feels the same going forward as going back. So I want to try and make that a little bit more varied. So maybe I'm going to favor the forward pose a little bit more here. We'll see how that feels. Let's see. Okay, that feels okay. But let's also... Another thing I can do, and this is what I like about using the layered method, is I can just offset this curve. So maybe we have it so that the extremes of the arms aren't hitting at the exact same time as the extremes of the feet, the contacts. So the feet at the contacts are the widest, but maybe the arms at the widest slightly after that. So I could do something like this. Now, this is starting to feel totally disconnected. So I don't want to do that. Maybe I go just one frame off. Or I could even offset it a little bit forward so it's leading right there. And that actually kind of creates a nice feeling right there. Where the arm, there's almost kind of like a purposeful swing to the arm there. I kind of like that. I'm going to go for a little bit more relaxed, so we'll keep it offset like this. But now I'm going to go through and let's clean up my curves here. So right now the arm is feeling sticky. See how it just kind of holds there too much? I want that to move a little bit faster right through here. Then it comes through. And actually, before I do this, let me set the curve back and I'm going to buffer the curve. I like to do this simply because sometimes you're going to end up like starting to tweak your curves after you offset them. And really all you're doing is going back to the way the curves used to be. So for example, if I do this, See how I'm just really going back to the way the curve was before? That's not good. It's not the point of this. So be very careful with that. In this case, I feel like this is okay. As long as my extremes are slightly off, that's okay to do that. I want that momentum of the arm going forward here. Goes forward, swings through. So on the passing pose, it's a little forward. That's good. Swings through. This is okay here. I feel like it's holding way too long right there, so I'll start to bring it back. Maybe a little faster right there. Swings through. And then maybe we're going to ease that a little less there. Okay. So something like that. Now, another thing that I like to do with this is just compare my values. So I'm going to a value of 10 here for the arm going back and going to a value of 18 here going forward. This makes sure that I'm not mirroring them. It's not going the same angle forward and then the same angle back. Going backwards is usually going to be a lot lower than going forwards. So I actually might take this here and bring that even further down. So we just have a bigger contrast between the backwards motion here. The arm is not as steep compared to the forwards motion of the arm. So something like that. So we just feel that slight difference. You don't have to do that, but it's nice to make sure that we're not mirroring things in weird ways, which is something we always have to watch out for. Okay, so we've got that. We've got the forward motion of the arm. Perfect. Now, let's go to the in and out motion of the arm. The arm does not just move in a straight line. It tends to kind of move in a slight figure eight pattern and an in and out rhythm. So I'm going to go here to the front view and let's take our shoulder. I'm just going to keep it selected here. And let's unpin that for now. Or actually, no, I do want to keep that pinned because that's going to be on this control. So I want to take my rotate X, keep that pinned. And now I also have the secondary control, which is going to control our in and out motion. And save. Yes, thank you, Wookie. And for the reminder, you saved our work yesterday, so huge kudos. It was so close to just having everything crash. So let's go back to our front view here. I'm going to turn off the grid. Don't really need to see that. The main reason for seeing the grid is so we can see the center point. At this point, the center is where the body is. That's all I really care about. So we want to animate the shoulder going in and out. And that's going to be, I believe, the rotate Z on this control right here. So we're going to be blocking that in right here. So as the arm is back, it's going to be in a little further behind. So kind of tuck it behind the character. As it goes forward, let's go to our contact pose right here. It's going to go slightly in once again. As it goes to the passing pose, we just want to make sure that there's a little bit of a gap between the arm and the hip so that we're not kind of just slamming into that leg. It needs to go around the leg. So it goes around, then in front, and then back again there. So something like this. Now that doesn't look great yet. So we need to keep refining it. So it comes back. Now I want to add a little bit of drag here. So if we're looking at this, see how the hips are moving screen right and the hand is just kind of moving screen right at the same time? Well, let's try to offset that a little bit. So I'm going to take this And let's actually, let's show the manipulator for a second here. So I can just animate in this one view and we can see everything nice and full screen. So I want that arm to drag there a little bit. So as it goes forward, the arm still keeps going screen left for a little bit before going screen right. And then let's go in here. We can tweak our curve a little bit. Let's actually unpin this. It's kind of getting in my way. Okay. So ease that in there. Then it comes out through here. Goes around. I want a little bit more drag right there. Goes over and around. As we got that nice big whipping motion and the hip is starting to stop, I want the arm not to just kind of circle around the hip. I want it to kind of overlap. So it goes out and then back in. So maybe I'm going to hold this out just a little longer here. And Woodland Yeti, hello! Hope you're doing well. So we'll hold that a little bit more before coming in. And this is just going in too far right here. I'm going to tone it down and then have it offset coming in through here. Now, I could have done this just by offsetting my curve as well. So it really depends on how do you want to create all of these offsets. Do you want to do it in manually, or do you want to build it in kind of straight ahead like I'm doing? And then let's round this out just a little bit more. Right there. Round that out. Oops, wrong key. This one. Boop. There we go. So let's see how this feels. It's going to be a little sharp. You can see it right there. But now we get that kind of weight to the arm. And you can see how it almost feels like the arm gets dragged around slightly versus just kind of going back and forth. So what's happening here? Goes through. I feel like I could round this out a little bit more. Kind of push that overshoot right there, so it doesn't just hit a wall. Comes through. Just out of curiosity, I wonder if I push this over here, how that's going to feel. Not bad. It makes the arm kind of feel a little too, like too much like dead weight. So that's actually feeling pretty good. Where else can we push things? I feel like right here, this is feeling a little sharp. I'll pull that in a little bit more. And then maybe we'll just not have the arm go so far forward. I don't think we need that there. I want to have that contrast where it goes further. Yeah, something more like that. Okay. Now you'll notice that the hand is kind of tucking into the leg. We're not going to worry too much about that right now because we do have other elements that we need to adjust. And worst case scenario, I can just globally move the arm out like this. And now it's just a little further from the body. So this is the nice thing with working in a layered fashion like this, is we know which control is affecting which motion, and we have a little bit more influence on it. Okay, so with this, the next thing I want to do before I get into the rotation of the arm is I actually want to do the elbow slightly. The reason I want to do the elbow is the elbow bend is going to determine how much this happens. If my arm is straight and I rotate, we just get this. If I bend my arm, we get this. So that bend of the elbow is going to determine a lot of the visual impact of rotating the arm this way. So to get the elbow in place, essentially I'm just going to create some overlap. Now there's a few different ways we could do it. We could do it manually, where I just take that motion and follow it through. This is probably going to be the way that I do it here. Or I could take the motion of the upper arm and copy it onto the elbow. So the way we would do that is I would take my rotate Z of the arm, or sorry, rotate X of the arm here. Go to edit, copy, and let's tear this off here. Copy that, and then paste it on the rotate Y of the elbow. Right there. And now we've got the elbow kind of going through there. And actually that gives us a pretty decent feeling right here. So from there, all I want to do is take my rotate Y and offset it so that as the arm goes forward, so the upper arm is going forward, the lower arm is still going backwards right here. And then it goes forward. As the upper arm stops, the elbow bends and drags behind. So there we go. Now, there's going to be an issue with this, which is the elbow hyperextending. As it goes through here, it's starting to bend backwards. We don't want that. So I'm just going to take the whole curve and bring it down so the elbow never hyperextends. Like so. How does that feel? Let's look at it from the side view here. Not bad. Maybe offset that curve a little bit more. Okay. Not bad. I can now adjust the curve, and the biggest thing I'm going to do first is I feel like the elbow is just bending way too much here. So I'm going to take my entire curve and just scale it down. So the elbow, we get that bend, but not nearly as much. Okay, there we go. From here, let's just push some spacing. So as it goes forward here, I feel like this could just be a little straighter, so I'm going to offset this a couple more frames. Let's see. It's just scrubbing through, really trying to get a feel of how is this working? How do I want it to feel? So it straightens out here. As the arm slows down, it's starting to bend too soon right here. So I'm going to just bring this up a little bit right there. See how that feels. A little bit better. Then as it changes direction here, let's just ease that in a little bit more. Starts to straighten right here. I almost feel like it could straighten a little faster. Put a little bit more kind of oomph into that arm there. Let's see how that feels. Yeah, that it kind of makes the arm feel a little bit more active versus just kind of floating down. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so we've got our elbow motion in there. That's pretty much it. I could keep going in here and refining some of my arcs and whatnot, but overall, it's not bad. I think I'm just going to add another key right in here just to ease out right there, round that corner so it doesn't snap. But there we go. Okay, let's look at it from the front view. Okay, we've got that. Elbow done. Now I can go back to my control right here. And now I want to use the rotate X of this to curve the arm in and out as it goes around. So my rotate X here is going to be, as it goes to the front here, the big thing is that the arm will rotate inwards slightly. As it's back here, it tends to rotate outwards slightly, like that. So I'm just going to go in here, kind of build that in right through there. And honestly, that's not bad. I can now just start refining certain things to exaggerate the motions right there. So as it goes through, we get a little bit more drag this way. And now you can see that kind of figure 8 arc that's starting to happen on the front of the arm there. And it creates more of a swing to the arm. Instead of just that kind of robotic motion, we're starting to see a flow in the hand right there. So we're starting to get that. I'm feeling like I need a little bit more of a breakdown right here. Something like that. Let's see. I might tone this down just a little bit right here. As it comes forward. That's okay there. I wonder if I can... I'm just going to see how it feels like if I try to drag it. Something like that. And I'm going to see about offsetting it 1 frame. Okay. Not bad. I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a sharp motion right through here. But that is the rotate Z kicking in. So let's go through that. See if I can ease that a little bit more here. Not go quite so extreme right there. I really want to get that weight of the arm. I don't want the arm to feel just super light and bouncy. Okay. So we've got that. Now it's not perfect. You'll notice the fingers are kind of getting really close to the hip. I'm not going to worry about that right now because I still have to add in the hand motion as well as the clavicle motion. So again, none of this is getting it polished. We're doing certain polishy elements. Like you can see, I'm definitely cleaning up arcs and curves and all of that stuff already. But I am not trying to make this absolutely perfect. Okay, so we've got that. Perfect. So, with this, let's add the wrist motion in there. Now the wrist is just going to overlap what the elbow is doing. So once again, I can just take the elbow. Let's copy that. Go to our wrist. And essentially just going to be a little bit of rotate Y. I could maybe twist the hand a little bit if I wanted to. Just add a little extra overlap there, maybe. Maybe a little bit of rotate Z. I don't think I'm gonna... see. I'm just trying to think which attributes are going to be the most necessary here. Now, another thing I can do here is the wrist also has a gimbal control. So I can turn that on as well to make sure that I don't overlay animations in a weird way. So I think animate that there. Yeah, that should do it. So let's get that rotate Y in here first. I'm going to paste my animation from the elbow to the wrist. And now we get that drag in there. Now, for anyone who's seen my streams, you know that we can't really rotate our wrist over to the thumb side too far right there. So this is broken already. I'm going to just take my whole curve, bring it back this way. So now we get that nice drag in the hand there, and we just need to offset it. Something like that. Now it's starting to change direction too quickly here. And then from there, I can just tweak the curve. So we've got some hand overlap. It's a little too much, so I'm going to scale it down. Something like that. Let's ease that down just a little bit there. And a lot of this, you'll notice that I'm tweaking the curves quite a bit. But by copying the curves, it's not just copy and done. That's not the goal here. The point of copying the curves is essentially just giving me a place to start without having to do everything manually every single time. Okay. So we've got that in there. Just a little hand overlap. Okay. Now, for the rotate of the wrist, so that's going to be the rotate X here. You don't necessarily have to add this in, but since we have that rotate of the shoulder and the arm here, maybe I can take that and copy it onto the hand. Let's give it a try. So I can take that, copy it onto my rotate X right there, paste, and now we just have that extra little twist of the hand as well that I can then offset. And let's look at it from the front view here. We just get an extra little layer in there. It's not going to be much. You're not going to feel it's too much, but it's going to be in there. So now, essentially, the hand, at this point, we're seeing more of the back of it. And then at the back here, we're seeing more of the palm. You can see that twist happening right there. And then let's see offsetting just a little bit more. Okay. It adds a little bit of weight to the hand there. Okay, I'm not going to worry too much about tweaking that, because a lot of it's going to depend on the hand posing. Let's see, I feel like the hand is bent too far back a little the whole time. I'm going to take my offset right here and bring it down a little. Better. Okay, cool. So we've got that in place. Now I can also add some offset in the wrist going this way, and we can take the rotate Z and offset that as well. So that's the in out of the arm. I can take that and add that to the wrist a little bit. So I'm going to copy this, Select our wrist. We've got our rotate Z. Let's paste that. And that's going to break quite horribly there. So let's bring our curve back to a default right there. Okay. So now one thing here, you'll notice I can't really see what's happening with that wrist rotation. It doesn't look like it's doing anything. If that's the case, scale up your rotation. Just go really huge. And suddenly you're going to be able to see what's happening there. So overall, let's see, it needs to be offset. So it drags back, then overlaps. Drags, overlaps, comes in, overlaps, like that. Let's see how that feels. Okay, not bad. It definitely makes the wrist look like it's broken right there, but it does add that extra little like relaxation in the wrist. Now this is way too much, but the overall motion of that doesn't feel bad. So all I really need to do is scale it down. Scale it down until I feel it versus seeing it. So it's still in there, maybe a little less. But now we've got that little bit of extra organic motion in that wrist versus just perfectly locked off. And that's kind of the goal with, or one of the powers of this layered animation is it's very easy to just put something in, scale it to a huge amount. The overall motion feels good, and then we just tone it down till we feel it. And it creates this nice organic kind of quality to the animation. So with that, we've got pretty much the arm in place here. And let's look at it from 3/4, see how it feels. It's not absolutely perfect, but for like, what, 20 minutes or whatever it is, we've got the whole arm swing in there. Now, there's a couple things we need to do now. The hand and then the shoulder. Well, for the hand, the easiest thing I can do right now is just use Studio Library and add a hand pose. So I'm going to find a nice relaxed hand pose. Let's go with this one. And we'll just take that, apply the hand pose. There you go. Hand pose done. So now we've got our animation and the hand is nice and posed out. One thing I want to make sure is that I do this on my key and not just randomly somewhere over here. So let's apply that again. And we've got the hand pose throughout the whole shot. Done. And fingers don't really overlap, so I don't have to worry too much about that. Later on, I could maybe add a little overlapping motion to the fingers, but we can worry about that in a little bit. Okay. So hand is done for now. We need the clavicle. The clavicle is going to be huge in this. Now, the clavicle is just sympathetic with the shoulder. That's all it really does. If the arm goes forward, clavicle goes forward. If the arm goes back, clavicle goes back. Well, we've got controls that are already doing the forward-back motion for us. So this rotation here, forward and back, I can just take that and copy it right here onto the clavicle, forward, back right there. So I'm taking my rotate X from this control. I'm going to paste it on the rotate Y of my clavicle control. Paste. Or actually, let me double check there. That's the rotate. That should be rotate Y. I select the rotate Z. Duh. There we go. Let's see. This approach made me not afraid of the graph editor. Yes, the once you get this and really understand the graph editor, it really makes things much faster. Let's see, any tips to avoid counter animation with the different arm sections? How do you feel, or how do you deal with the movements like the forearm leading the arm rather than the shoulder driving the action. There's a few different ways you can do it. Normally when I'm animating, I do typically pose to pose. So it's really just working with your breakdowns, making sure you know what leads, what follows, and putting that in your posing. So for example, if I'm a good example of the forearm leading is if I have my arm like this, I could bring my arm down and then straighten my elbow. So that's the drag, but I can also do this. So you see how my elbow leads and then my arm drops? So that's the the lower arm leading the action. So I would just put that in my posing. If you're using layered animation, you would just look at your curves and you would want to make sure the elbow curve, this motion here, leads before this curve, bringing this arm down. And you're going to get that layered action there. So it's just thinking whether you're pushing that pose to pose or within the curves. Now, in terms of counter animation, you're always going to have to deal with certain levels of counter animation, especially when you're dealing with like the elbow and then this arm. If I move this down, then I have to adjust this. That's part of just posing the body. The biggest thing that can help is making sure that you're not counter animating within a control. So like I was showing in my shot, I used the gimbal control on the arm to break up the attributes so that I just have the one clean rotation that's not being affected by anything else. That's the biggest thing you can do. If you've got a control like this, swing forward and back, but then every other rotation that you're doing is also tweaking that curve and messing up with your spacing, that's going to be a nightmare. That's the big thing. Now, if you're dealing with the hand needing to be in a very specific place, I would work in IK. That way you just get the hand exactly where you need it, even if it's not touching anything. If I just have to do like a magic spell or like a rune in the air and trace like a magic circle in the air somehow, I would want that hand to be in IK, and I just follow that along, and then I make the arm work with that motion. If I'm trying to do this in FK, I move the arm here, then I have to move the elbow back and try to get it back to this. It's going to be a nightmare. So don't be afraid to switch to IK if you have to. And what about this example where you're moving the clavicle last? Wouldn't you have to readjust the shoulder? Yes. But that's not a problem because the arm isn't doing anything specific. If the arm goes a little bit more forward, a little bit more back, doesn't make a huge difference. If I had to reach a character like forward here, and then I did the clavicle last, that would be an issue because if I have to touch the edge of the screen, I suddenly move the clavicle forward, I've ruined the whole arm pose. So in those cases, I would do the whole arm together, make sure I get that pose solidly in place, and then work from there. I wouldn't just work on the arm separately alone. It would be clavicle, elbow, arm, the whole thing together. Even maybe the whole body. This layered workflow, the way I'm doing it right now, works for cycles, not always for like very specific posing. If a character has to hit like a very specific pose, sword in the air, anything like that, you would want to use a little bit of a mixture of pose to pose and layered animation. That way you know you're hitting your keys. So yeah, order of operations is tricky, and then it's tricky because the workflow changes on every single project you work on and what are the requirements. And sometimes even like mid-project, I might be doing like a layered workflow on half of it, and then the other half of it I'm doing just pose to pose because you need to hit these very specific motions. So let's go here and just add that clavicle. So rotate Y. I wanted to copy that over. And did I copy it over? I can't remember. Yeah, I did. So now we have that clavicle moving forward and back with the arm. Now the clavicle, I could offset it a little bit. Maybe one frame, just to create a little bit more of an organic motion. That's not always necessary. The clavicle moves it's pretty connected to the arm. But let's offset it one frame just for the sake of it. So we've got that. And overall, that range of motion is pretty good. Now, one thing I tend to try and avoid is doing the copy paste. Done, it's perfect. How do I know it's perfect? Could it be better if it was bigger? Could it be better if it was smaller? I don't know. And I have to try it out. I can't just copy and paste it and then go, well, that's the best it's ever going to be. Maybe it is. I need to test it first. So what I will tend to do is I'll scale up the curve just a huge amount to the point where that shoulder is like definitely broken here. And then just scale it back down to the range I want it to be. So I want that shoulder at its most extreme should be maybe back here. I'm just looking at the silhouette of the body there. Maybe around there. Now at its least or at the other extreme, which is going to be over here. That's a little too much. Let's bring that back. So I'm going to scale this down until that feels right. Somewhere around there. A little bit more. Break that silhouette just slightly. Okay, let's see how that feels. Yeah, there we go. So I went to my most extremes, got that range of motion. There we go. But I made sure to break it first because then it's much easier to see what needs to be tweaked versus just going straight from something that looks relatively okay. Okay, from there, we need the up and down of the shoulder, the clavicle, up and down here. Well, that up and down motion, what rotation would work well with that? Because essentially it has to go up here, down as it goes through there, up as it goes through here, then back down. Well, there's not really a control that I can use and copy to get that motion specifically. So I'm just going to block it in myself. And that's totally fine. Sometimes it's going to be more of a pain trying to find like a specific control than just blocking it out manually. So here it's going to be a little higher. I'm just going to like roughly block it in. Then it goes, make sure I don't actually accidentally create a weird cycle here. Let's actually do this on our frames. So frame 1, this is going to be a little higher. Then we cycle it over here. Okay. Now I'll go to the next contact right there and bring this down. Or sorry, no, next contact is going to be up. The arm is facing forward, and that up is going to be higher than the other one. Just a little bit. And then on the passing pose, approximately, this is where the arm is going to be at its lowest. And it goes through and then passes again. Once again, it's at its lowest there. So we get something like this. This is when the arm is back here and here. It goes down, then back up higher than it was before because it's going forward. And then it goes back and then through. So something like this. Let's see how that range of motion feels. I'm going to scale it up. So try to go too far. And then bring it back down till it looks good. And then I can always scale down the whole curve globally if I need to. So let's look at it from the front, see how it feels. Yeah, definitely too much. I also need to offset this curve now. So it matches with the arm motion. Not bad. Way too much. But I'm going to keep it scaled up here so I can play with my spacing. Essentially, I want to ease these curves in and out a little bit. So let's ease that out a little bit there. As it comes up through here, let's ease this a little bit. Goes down. We need to ease that. and then ease back out here. Just a little bit. Let's see how that feels. Okay, that adds a little bit more weight to the arm. Doesn't feel quite right though. So let's go through, scrub, and see what we can find. So the arm is taking too long to come up right here. As it's going up, it's almost delayed. Goes down here, that's good. But then it needs to start going up quite a bit faster here. So something like that, and then come down just a little faster. Let's actually offset this one more frame the other way. Do something like this. Okay. That feels good here. Now it comes up. That feels better. It's up, 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 up. Down. Drops. It needs to drop a little faster here. Because of that contact, we're going to get that weight in there. Even here, I think we could maybe... Oh, this works pretty well. Yeah. Okay, let's see how that feels. That's better. Now it's feeling connected to the contact and to the arm motion. Okay. Now the big problem is it's just too much. I want to feel that a little bit. I don't want her to bounce her shoulders around. So let's just tone that down. Something like that. Maybe a little bit higher. Okay. So there's our clavicle. All done. With this, we just need to adjust the hands a little bit, or the arm, because it's cutting through the leg. So I'm going to take my rotate X, or sorry, my rotate Z here, and just pull that around and out so that the hand goes around the leg. And we don't get that intersection. There we go. There's our arm motion. Done. Now, the nice thing with this is I can save. And we're just going to turn on the right arm. Turn on our gimbal controls so we can see those. Right there and there. And from there, just copy all of our animation. So I'm going to select these, select the wrist and the hand, the elbow, all of that. Make sure I don't have anything else. And let's use Animbot and mirror all our keys. Let's see if that did anything. Nope. Why didn't it do anything? Oh wait, I'm on an animation layer. Make sure I'm on my base animation layer here. Okay. Unless it... Let me just double check here. Okay. Got that in place. Good. Double check my graph editor. Good. I do have a control that's not animated. Which one is it? Oh, it's just attributes. Okay. Good. Okay. There we go. Let's try that again. Base animation layer. Mirror all keys. There we go. Now we have that. Now, once again, for some reason, Animbot isn't copying my tangents. So let me see about the options here. Snap mirror settings. It should be in here. Why aren't you copying correctly? Let me try something here. I'm gonna save. I'm just gonna set my character back into their T pose. Let's see, where is that? I always forget the reset options. Do. It is. It's not under keys, is it? Let's see. Let's see. I can do this with the studio library potentially. No. I don't have a default pose in here. So, trying to think the best way to approach this. Now, to be fair, I have the animation copied over. I just need to clean up my tangents, but I would rather not have to do that because I've already cleaned up all my tangents and everything. It'd be nice if it just copied that over for me. So, okay. Just thinking, what's the best way to approach this? I need to make a snapshot of my character, but I need to reset them first. So, best way to reset them would be to take my controls here. Actually, MG Picker might be able to do that. So I select all here. I'm just going to set a key right here on 48, and I'm going to reset the selection. There we go. Aha. So plugins help. So now it's on its default T-pose. Let's do a snapshots here. Okay, good. So with that, let that go through. Let's see if I can change my snap settings now. Oh, so mirror snap settings just goes into, okay. Let's delete that then. We don't need this key anymore. And let's try once again just copying that animation. See if it'll keep the tangents this time. Okay. Mirror all keys. Nope. Dang it. It keeps certain tangents in weird places. That's weird. Okay. Well, I'm not gonna fight it. So I'm just probably missing a setting here. So I'm just gonna take all my curves here on this arm, auto tangent them. And actually, something's off with my cycle. That might be it. Let's actually just delete all the keys here. So I just got rid of all the animation on those. And let's try again, because it looked like something was not copying right. So mirror all keys. Okay. Well, that's better in terms of the cycles, but our tangents are still screwed up. So we'll just auto tangent everything and look for any curves that are majorly out of place. So I can just start cleaning this up here. I'm just looking for anything that's kind of obviously wrong. But overall, that's pretty good. Yeah, there we go. So now I've got the arm going through, but it's going to be all messed up still. It's not right. It's just following what the other arm is doing. I just need to offset this. And essentially I just need to offset it about 12 frames. So take all of this, offset it 12 frames, and make sure I get everything. What did I miss? Okay. There we go. Got it all there. Maya is not happy with me. Okay. Why is it Oh, no. That should be right. It's like something in the cycle isn't working correctly. What the heck? Let me try something. Yeah. It should be working. Maybe it's just Maya's not processing things correctly. Let me take all of this here. Okay, like that. And I'm going to take my curves. And let's turn the infinity cycle off and on again. Now it shouldn't be moving. Then it should be moving fine here. Okay, now let's cycle again. There we go. Something's still breaking though. Oh wait, it's because I don't have my gimbal control turned on here. Somehow that didn't get turned on. Okay. Okay, let me Oh no, I don't think I need to undo. So when I reset the controls, what ended up happening is the gimbal controls got turned off, which meant that when I mirrored the animation, it didn't mirror the gimbal controls. So I need to go through again, now that I have all the proper controls actually visible. And let's just do that again super quick. So I'm going to delete all that animation, select the other arm. The joys of Maya. But that's normal. It's essentially trying to figure out what went wrong. So I'm going to mirror all those keys again. There we go. Now we should be in place. Take all of these curves. So take all of that. Auto tangents. Let's look for anything that looks majorly out of place. Like right here. Get that nice cycle in there. Usually you just want to look at the start and stop. Make sure that there's no like weird hitch. And then from there, you just go through and maybe clean up some of the spacing a little bit. Look for any wiggles. I'm not going to spend too much time. So right here, that's definitely going to need to be cleaned up there. Okay. And right here as well. Okay. So with that, we can finally take this, offset it 12 frames, and we should be finally good to go. That was more headache than it should have been. And what did we miss? Something with the clavicle here. There's a stray key. Now, which key is it? I think it's that one. Well, without fighting it. No. I don't want to fight it, so I'm just going to take my clavicle, delete all the keys, remirror it. Then clean it up from there. There we go. Sometimes it's easier just to redo it than to try and fight it. There we go. Hassle. But we've got the arm done. There's still a stray key. It just won't let me win. The arm is not cycling correctly. So if that's the case, what you want to do, yeah, see here? How we see that curve going down, down, down? Something isn't cycling correctly right there. Let me double check all of my curves. Yeah, somehow when I copied it over, it didn't copy the keys properly. It added an extra key in there. Animbot is just making me do more work. So let's try this again, because all my curves are weird. So let's delete those. There's no more animation. The clavicle I know is working. So let's kind of do just a few controls at a time. So I'm going to take these, mirror all keys. Okay, that's the other side now. There's no offset, good. Let's auto tangent everything. Fix any offsets here. Okay, that's good. Do the elbow and the wrist together. The hand is, there's no keys, so I don't have to worry about it. Mirror all keys once again. Auto tangents. Okay. Good so far. No offset. Good. Clean up a little bit of the curves there. Okay. Now let's just do the hands. Which is just, I could just apply it using the studio library, but we'll just mirror it over. There we go. And actually undo that. I don't want to do the wrist. I just want to do the hands. Okay. So 10th time the charm? Nope. Where did all the controls go? It just doesn't want to play nice with me today. Okay. Usually it works a lot faster than this. I will say that. Okay, finally. I think finally we've got it. Now we offset. At this point, we could have just easily reanimated it all. To be fair, we're still saving time with this. So I'm going to offset it 12 frames. There we go. Now we've got the arms in place. And there we go. Let's look at it from the front view. We've got that. I feel like I could bend the elbows in a little bit more, just globally. It feels a little stiff with the arms. From the front, not bad. I feel like I could maybe push the rotation of the arms here back slightly. So just take the whole thing and I'm going to move it back so that we have more of an arc backwards on the arms. Right there. There we go. So there we have it. We've got our arm motion in there. Needs some refining, but it wouldn't be too much work. The biggest thing is the front view. Getting a little bit more of an arc to the arms. So with that, we really just have the head to do. Now for the head, it's actually not going to be too bad, as long as our tools work for us. So let's do that super quick here, because then I do have to get going pretty soon. So for the head, I'm actually going to switch this to let's get the motion of the head and then we'll add the expressions. That way we can still work quickly. So for the head, the big thing that we want is for the body to be a little bit more stabilized. See how the head's kind of doing this? That's a little too much. I've got too much rotate X going on the chest. So I'm going to scale that down a little bit. We don't want the head to feel like it's doing some sort of pigeon walk right through there. Globally, I'm just going to bend the neck forward slightly. This is going to give a little bit more of a lean to the character, like so. Now, we need to add the rotations to the head. Well, for the rotations of the head, it's pretty simple. The head is going to overlap based on the up and down of the hips. Now, I've got the up and down on the chest as well, so I can take that control. So my translate Y, I'm going to copy that and paste it onto the rotate X of the head. There we go. So with this, I now have the head going up and down, and I just need to offset it a little bit. So let's take this, offset it maybe 1 frame. Oh, not in the right direction. There we go. So as the body goes up, the head drags down. So body goes up, head drags down. Body comes down, head drags up. So something like that. There we have the overlap of the head. From here, I can just maybe tone it down a little bit. It feels a little extreme. And then maybe push the spacing. So that as it comes up here, maybe hold a little bit more, because the head is quite heavy. Too much. I think I can also angle the head a little bit so the character is looking down ever so slightly, not straight forward. So we've got that in place. Let's see how it feels from the front. Not bad. From the side. Not bad. Okay. So we've got the overlap pretty much done on the head. Now we need the side to side and tilt. And that is typically just sympathetic to the chest. So whatever rotation this chest are doing, we want the head to do. So the rotate Y, that's the twist. I'll just copy that. Paste it on the rotate Y of the head. And we get that motion right there. Now I'm going to take this, delay it maybe 1 frame so we get a little bit of an offset. And then I'll just scale it down. So we get that nice feeling that they're connected, but not 1-to-1. And maybe a little smaller. Something like that. Now I can take the chest, take the rotate Z, copy that, go to my head control, rotate Z, paste it in, same thing, offset it maybe 1 frame, and now we've got that. And this one I'll scale it down, but not as much. I usually want to have one rotation that we kind of feel a little bit more than the others. And there we go. We've got the head in there. Now if we want to add a little bit more fleshiness, just a little bit, a hint, a dash of fleshiness, I'm going to take my translate Y curve here of the chest, copy this, I'm going to put it on the translate Y of the head. The head really shouldn't be bouncing up and down, but I can just get a little extra here. So this is where we're going to get this up and down on the head. It looks very strange. So with this, what I'm going to do is offset this a couple of frames. So we get that kind of slight offset right there. And then just lower this so that it doesn't stretch the neck, but it squashes the neck ever so slightly. So we get that kind of motion here. And I then scale this an insane amount. Just enough that we can kind of feel it. Even less than that, probably. Something like that. And now we just get a little bit of compression in the neck, but just enough that we can kind of get a feel for it. There we go. So let's see how that feels here. Not bad. There's definitely a few little tweaks that I would want to do, but for the start, we're good. So with this, let's bring our full character in here, not just the proxy mode. So I'm going to go to low res here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some expressions here. So I'm going to go to the picker here and let's see. Let's just add some eye expressions. Let's see. Trying to think which one would be good for this. I just want kind of a relaxed expression. What would be a good one? I think let's take. I want a nice curve to the brows. That's really what I'm looking for. Let's take surprise here and apply that. Make sure I'm on frame 1. Something like that. And then the hands, we'll just add a, or sorry, hands, mouth. We're just going to add a nice smile in here. So let's see. Happy 3. Something like that. She kind of looks worried now. A little too worried. Let's go back to those eyes and we'll go Let's see. I can just take this surprise here and we'll work off of that. Oh, she looks very very focused right now, we'll put it that way. So I'm just going to take my eyebrow controls here, bring them down, relax the eyes a little bit. Right there. Something like this. Normally when you're using a pose library for the face, the main thing that you want to do is only use it as a starter. Don't use it as like your whole base there. I need to relax the eyes here. There we go. So we'll go with something like that for now. Okay, something like that. It's not the greatest, but we can tweak it later. And then the other thing that I want to do is I want to take the eye control. And I want to make sure follow line is turned off. And let's set that eye to the center here and looking forward. And I want to keep it going forward here. Actually, no, I don't have to worry about that. So, haha. And let's select the face. There's some extra keys in here. Don't need those. There we go. Now we've got the eyes pretty much there. If I want to make the eyes feel a little bit more natural, I'll take the follow line and just set it to something like 0.8 instead. So it stays in front, but we get a little offset with the head. Okay. So don't worry too much about the expression. We're just looking at the rest of the character. Make sure I bring her shoes back on. There we go. See how it feels. There we go. There's an odd pop in the rotate X of the hip right there. I'll have to clean that out. You can kind of see it in the waist right now that we have the fleshiness of the character. There's just this little like snap that's happening. So I'd want to tweak that. From the side view, this is working pretty well. Character feels a little slumped forward. I could maybe take that chest, tilt it up a little bit more. We just get a little bit more of a curve to the body. But overall, not bad. The arcs of the feet are working well. I feel like I could push the overlap in the wrists a little bit more. The shoulder is going too high up on the back here. The clavicle is going higher up than it is going forward. So I'll have to tweak that. But for the most part, those are just some small minor notes. Pushing a little overlap. All those good things. Okay. So, there's our cycle. Now, let's see, how much time do I have? Technically, I'm already half an hour over, so I won't be able to do all of that fine-tuning. I would also push the expression. I'm not a fan of this expression. It's not appealing. So I would go through, push that face, make it much more just interesting to look at. One good facial expression. But I did want to show one thing. And this, I haven't tested on this rig, so it's partly me just wanting to test this. Is all of this demo here is about animating quickly. About finding ways of speeding things up, using certain plugins to make our life a little bit easier. Well, what if we have a character here and they've got long hair? And I've animated this character, and I would like to add a little overlap to the hair right there. How can I do that? Well, one of the quick ways to do it is to use a plugin. So there's a plugin called Overlapper right here. This is great for creating simple overlap on objects. Now, once again, I haven't tried it on this rig, so this is going to be an experiment to see if it actually works. But essentially, I can just take controls here, and let's see, do I have a global hair control selection? I think I put one in, but I can't remember. Okay, I might have to add that in there. But I want to just select all of the hair controls on the back of the head here. Make sure I don't have anything else selected. Okay. Going through the hair. I probably won't need the upper hair actually here. I don't want that to start like flailing around. Just the lower hair. Even that. Don't need that. Okay. Good. So we've got that. Let's just try using the overlapper. See what happens. So I've got my controls selected. We can change the softness and the scale. That's going to be how much it overlaps. Let's just see what it does. It's going to take a while. And I should have set it to do a cycle. Forgot to do that. But we'll see what we get. I think I need to select a few more controls, and for some reason that control got totally deselected. So let me undo. And I'll push up the scale as well. Okay, so make sure I don't deselect this one. This control needs to be selected, and okay, cool. So we've got those. Let's set our scale up to 2, and I'm going to set it to cycle. Okay, so there's nothing there. Try overlapping. See what we get. The overlapper tool is really good for doing like simple tails, simple even spine animation. Can work really well. You get this kind of organic wiggle to things. But to be fair, I don't use it all that often. The main thing is I just want to add a little bit of motion without having to spend a lot of time on it. That's the goal. So, there we go. Yeah, way too much. But we can kind of see what we get now. Ugh. Not great. So, I would want to tone it down. And additionally, let's see. So let's undo this. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But essentially, with the overlapper tool, we can get some really nice stuff if we take some time. Now, instead of doing all of the hair at once, I should probably just do one strand until I get the settings I want in place. That would be the smart thing. This is the same thing with rendering or any type of well, anything that you're doing, if you're trying to test a tool like this, don't try to do everything at once. Do a small section. So for example, if I'm doing a render test, I will never try to render the whole thing all at once. That's just asking for trouble. Instead, I'll do one frame with a very low resolution so I can render quickly, and then also make sure that what's the word I'm looking for? That I work smart. So just in sections instead of doing the whole thing all the time over and over and over. So for example, here, we're just going to do this one strand. Look at how much faster that was. And now I can check it out. Once it lets me play here. Okay, it's doing the hierarchy right there. There we go. So now I can see how that feels. And that's not bad. That's pretty good. Maybe a little too much still. It kind of looks a little wiggly. So I can just undo that. I think I can tone down the softness of it. It feels too soft. So I'm going to scale it down to half. I love this song. And maybe we'll tone down the scale of it as well. Okay. So let it go through. It's doing the whole hierarchy. And let's hit play. That's better. So just a little bit of motion in there. Okay. So from there, now I can do the rest. Now I'm just going to try with 3 of them. See if it'll do it correctly for me. And then if that works, then I can do the rest. Okay. Yeah, that didn't work quite the way I wanted it to. Okay, so undo. Okay. So I'll just do one strand at a time. Overlap. Like that. See how that feels? There we go. And I'll just try hierarchy with this one selected. I want to see if I can just get away with animating the one control and it does the whole thing for me. Looks like it did. Perfect. So now I just need to select the top strand, overlap, and we'll go through the whole thing here. Now, as we're doing this, I'm probably going to have to call it right after this here. So I hope this demo was helpful. I know we kind of ran into some tech issues as we were going through, but honestly, in a way, I'm kind of glad that we did, because that's part of animating. Animation is not perfect. Trying to do all of this stuff, you will run into moments where things don't work. That's part of it. Ideally, I wish my demos were a little bit more like everything would go well so we save time. But that's not the true animation process. Animation is messy. It does take time. It does require troubleshooting and going through and figuring out what the heck is going on. So if that happens to you, it doesn't mean that you're not doing things correctly. It doesn't mean that you are failing as an animator. that's the process. And we just have to go through it. So don't be afraid of that. And thank you, A to the J, for the link there. Yeah, that face, that expression is not, I'm not happy with that one. But let's take a look at the hair here. And we've got that. Done. There's a little bit of overlap there. I could even add, let's try to add a little bit to maybe these strands here. These ones here. All right. Once again, I need to do one at a time. I can't get ambitious. Let's see, is that going to be too much there? Yeah. So these ones are going to need a much smaller scale. Probably 0.2. Even that's quite a lot. But I can always tone it down myself afterwards. But the nice thing with this tool is you can see I'm getting free hair animation versus having to do it all manually and trying to do one curve at a time. It's saving me quite a bit in the long run. So let's just do the top hair there. See what we get. There we go. So just a little bit of bounce in that hair. You can see that it's dipping into her forehead right there. I would just take my curves and just pull them out slightly. So for example, right here, this hair there that's kind of cutting into her head, I would go to my graph editor, probably rotate Z, take that whole curve, just bring it up so that at no point does it cut through her head. So right there. And then there, it's a little too much. So I could just take this section here and I'm going to scale it. Just a little less. Same thing with this one. Bring that down, and then I'm just going to scale this end bit right here. So that that hair doesn't stick through. Let's see how that feels. There we go. Just adds that nice little overlap in the hair. And if I feel like it should be more, I can increase my scale, just have it a little bit bigger, and we're off to go. So there we have the walk. A few things to polish, add the facial expression, a little bit on the spine, some stuff like that, but pretty much done. I think the squash and stretch on the body is a little too much as well. Now that we've got the squishiness in here versus the proxy mode, I feel like I could tone this down. So let's bring it down to half. I still want that squishiness in the body, but not so much that we feel it. Actually, oops. I don't want to scale it. I forgot controls. I would want to offset it. There we go. So something like that. There we go. Yeah. So without, I'm going to just start falling into nitpicking here. Hopefully this demo was helpful. Hopefully it was interesting. There's definitely stuff I want to improve, but that's part of animation. It's not going to be done super quick and just in an instant. But even then, we can work faster with a lot of different things. So here, really just trying to figure out how we can animate smart and really use the animation curves that are already given to us to help push our animation and not have to do everything from scratch all the time.